Hi, I'm Ori Nachum, and I'm going to present to you agentic developer MCP. So a bit about myself. I'm in the industry for 17 years, 6 years in Tipalti, AI expert in innovation group, and at my free time, if I have any, is I'm using Gen AI for day-to-day life, edge computing, robotics. I'm very active in MDLI group and also co-lead JSON AI Lab Research Group and Gen AI AWS Israel in WhatsApp. A bit about Tipalti. Tipalti is a fintech company with over 1,000 employees worldwide. We have funding of over 700 million total and only 150 million on 2023. Tipalti connects payers and payees and streamlines financial operations from expenses, procurement, virtual cards, invoices, etc. Today, you've already heard a lot about agentic IDs and how they changed our lives and keep changing our lives. And it's a standard for most companies to work with agentic IDs. And a lot of it works very well. We make a request. A lot of developers or non-developers around the world make a request, and it works out of the box from a clean project to something that looks really impressive with a lot of connections. If we are more professional, we add some validation loops, tests, and the models can test themselves. It's amazing. And we can even dive deep to new repositories, learn whether in company or outside, and learn what's going on inside and deep dive really fast. So all of that's great. But there are some problems. When we work often with agentic IDEs, even the strongest models at some point start to get bloated with big context. The IDEs try to mitigate that with indexing, and we create new chat sessions. But even then, as the code gets bigger, we get the models start to make mistakes, maybe pick the wrong files, and they start to hallucinate, especially with big requests. This leads to code contamination, and eventually our code is not as great as it started or we hoped, and it's even stronger with our own big existing projects that we try to integrate agentic AI into them. And a lot of developers are even hesitant, and that's good. And there is also some explainability gap, because when we work with, we generated a lot of text, it's suddenly hard to, a lot of code, it's hard to understand, even with AI, what's going on, especially if we go between multiple repositories. So to try and mitigate that, to solve that, I'm presenting the agentic developer MCP, where we transform the agentic IDE to a whole team of agents that we control from our agentic IDE. And how it goes, how it works, the domain experts, usually infra teams, domain expert in specific teams, create their workbench. The workbench is a folder in a repository where they put their code, their agent, their setup, and how to do things in a small scale. The requester developer, each of us works with an IDE and makes a big request. That request contains buttons, components for UI, components for backend, different types of components, not specific ones where we would have uploaded them as a library. Our agent breaks down that request into smaller requests and send each of them to each of the agent on the workbenches. Now, it's a single assistant, a single agentic developer that gets a different configuration according to each of the setups that the domain experts provided. So this MCP has two main tools. The first one is request generate component, where it creates the component. the agent doesn't just reply the result, it saves it as a new branch. This is important for us because we want some control over that, and maybe to repeat if something was good and someone else needs it, or we want to retry. And then once it's committed and pushed, we can also fetch component. Now, before I continue, let me show you a full demo of how it works. So I chose Codex for this demo. For this setup in this agentic developer, I asked it to create an MCP server because that's what we do today. And I gave it some instruction about Jotify, can get a string into a Jot format. You can ignore that, but it shows us that it made a request and returned a response. Now the components are saved in the new repository, in a new branches, and we ask it to fetch the components and use them to integrate with the existing or a new file. In this case, I didn't have an existing project, but now that it knows how these components need to look, it will be much easier for it to integrate it with the existing code. And here you can see the result. It created the Jot according to my instructions. Now, before we move forward, let's see for a moment that it really didn't hallucinate, that it really created these components and merged them based on what it really, each agent generated. Hold on. I see that it doesn't share. So I just talked with myself.
No, we saw everything. We saw
we
your
saw?
screen. Yeah, we still see. It's all good. Keep going.
I got, okay, I heard it, we don't, sorry. So we can see, we can look at each of the branches. We can see that it really created these files. And
Wait,
we can
I
also,
seen. Sorry, I see in the chat that people say they don't see your screen.
yeah, so that's
I will
what
try
I
to
was.
remove it and add it back to stage. Can you see it right now?
Maybe it's how we present it. Let me retry.
Yeah. So remove. Sorry for that. And just try. We only saw the slide, but not
window.
the video.
I used window.
I don't saw the live video. Okay, try to
Sorry.
play it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we won't on the same tab.
Sorry. So I used Codex for the setup. Apologies. I asked it to write an MCP server. You know what I'm about to say. Based on the other agent's work, I wanted it specifically, and I can move it to system prompt instead of asking it every time again. It created each component. It requested to create each component, and they were created. Then it got a confirmation with the branch. I then asked it to fetch the code and use it to merge to a new file. If I had an existing project, it will just need to merge the new code to the existing project, which is much easier because now it knows how the code should look, and the team that knows the domain best can decide how it should look. And you can see the result. Now we'll move to the repository that contains all the workbenches, and it created a branch for each component that it created. You can see, dive in, see the code that it created, and you can also speak with the agent that is defined on that workbench. And if something didn't go well, or you want to make some improvements, you can ask it, or ask why it did it. And the domain team just needs to put all the information they need in that workbench, so that you don't have to ask them, although you don't have to ask them again, get back to them every time. So that's the agentic developer MCP. And you have seen a simple setup, and setting up an agent is really easy because the team just need to set up the JSON that defines that agent. I chose here for testing OpenAI and GPT-4o, which is not great, but if it works for it, it will work much better for Claude or other great coders. And system prompt. You can add more setups, MCP, other MCPs, temperature, etc. And in addition to the agents, you also need to set up some example testing code, testing framework. So the agent that is defined there not just writes, makes like a request that writes code to the repository. It's a real developer, agentic developer, so it can run code in boilerplates for bigger projects, and anything that a human developer would need to make that work, but in more narrow agent for the agent to work on reduced context. So what I did here, I took an AI provider, any provider. It wasn't just OpenAI's. It can work with any provider, and I gave it some middleware that gives it MCP support as a client, and then I used that. I use that to connect to other MCPs, so I can extend it now to anything I need, and this works in itself. It's open source, so you can even before agentic and everything, you can right now you have some request, you have some flow that you need to connect to an MCP. This already works, and you can use it in your flow. Let's see a quick demo. Now it works.
Yeah, now we can see it. All good.
Yeah. So setup is really easy. A CLI, we ask it to start. I configured an SQL to work with it, and I run some chat completion request, and it lists the table for me. Good. So that's a quick setup, but you can work with any MCP now. In any flow, it doesn't have to be an agent to do it. It doesn't have to be your IDE. Now that we have that, and since it also exposes the responses API, that is the OpenAI's modern agentic endpoint, you can work with the codecs, even though these two can be replaced with any CLI that does MCP client and coding agent. And now codecs can also run in background and as an active chat. In my examples here, you will see in my agentic developer earlier, you saw that I worked with codecs directly instead of working with Cursor or any other. Let's see a quick demo here. Yes. This time we're not just making an API request. We are making a request to codecs. So now we have on pipeline, for example, codecs to make background work for us. And you can see that it created new tables as I requested, and it did that work in the background. It wasn't just a single request; it was a flow. Check the code, check the tables, create a new table, and add new tables. And all of that I wrapped in as an MCP, and that's the agentic developer. And now you get an agent that works with MCPs and can be itself as an MCP, and that's how it can connect to other agents. Now, different to other solutions like that, amazing MCP UI that we saw earlier, this one is dedicated to programming, and that's why it's on Git, where we feel native, and it's dedicated for coding specifically, and it lets us set up agents as code, which is very nice. And you saw the agentic developer demo earlier, but if we set up, that one was in background, foreground. Let's see the last demo here. can see the setup is very simple. I run the ORS Open Responses server for the MCP support. I run codecs, and it's that simple. Okay, in this case, I asked it to create something simpler, just create a Fibonacci script for me. Thank you. So, auto runs. Sorry. So, what do we get from that? First, we hear a lot human in the loop, which is important and good, but I want to suggest something a little more human focused, human in the center, because here we have humans starting the process, developing, setting up the environment. A developer he works with it, and if something breaks, the developer can dive into any position inside and see what's going on, talk with the agent directly, and have full control of what's going on. And if there is some issue that the agent cannot fails to do, the human can intervene, merge things themselves, make changes to the components. The developer stays in the center. And this works with everything we have seen today. So I've seen amazing solutions to how to work with a cursor or any agentic IDE. And this keeps, as I mentioned earlier, new projects work very good. And this makes every new project breaks every new existing project to new projects that will get amazing results for these new smaller projects. And that's how we keep big tasks sane even in a mature environment. As I mentioned, this is developer friendly. Everything is in Git. We know how to work with Git. We feel comfortable with it, and it's easy to see what's going on, to dive in, run, maintain. And this is also friendly. Hold on. This is also AI friendly because now everything, the documentation, the agents, the setup, examples, everything is in code. So not just good for developers, but also good for AI because now it has context on how to work and what. And as agents improve, all of this technology will improve as well. So if we can get to some scale today, as agents improve and tools improve and MCPs improve our lives, we can do much, much more. Because now it's not just the developer or the co-pilot that got improved, it's the whole team. Some features that we still need to implement in the process of, by the way, agentic code indexing based on Codo's presentation back then. Agentic layers, it basically works, but needs more testing, as you can see, because everything is an MCP server and client. And the much needed chat app integrations, because we want to make requests and get the updates in Slack. We've seen this feature in a lot of places, and that's much needed. So what we have seen, workbench paradigm for agentic work at scale. This means that we can split our work and keep the AI focused and stable. A system, agentic developer solution that lets us, that implements this workbench idea, but that lets us break down everything and works natively with our code. This is a flexible MCP because we can connect everything as MCPs and these to themselves. And with this level of flexibility, with this level of control, and with keeping human in the center, I believe this is the next step in agentic development. And I know that it was already said today, I don't think these new paradigms that were introduced today contradict each other. In fact, I think they merge together even better. And everything is MIT licensed. It's open source, and we love open source because then we can take what we want, maybe build what fits better for us, and we can use it at work without a legal worry. So add a star, take a screenshot, test it for yourselves, ask questions, open issues. You're welcomed. I'd love to see this improves not just the work at our workplace, but also everywhere. And this is the team behind the T-Branch, that are open source organization of some developers, in Tipalti expert developers, that makes this on our free time mostly working. So thank you.